All right, so I think everyone is excited and ready to learn and be equipped with knowledge from our speakers today. So, to our first speaker. Our first speaker worked as a scientist in space department for 2 decades. He was a director at the Academic Staff College under University Grants Commission at the University of Calicut and was deputy director at Directorate General of Security Cabinet Secretariat in New Delhi before taking a voluntary retirement in 2009. He opted to be in academics and mentoring youth to create dreams in them and enrich their skills towards nation building. He conducted holiday sessions in Hyderabad called Siksha Holiday Program, which attracted many engineering students and MNC professionals as they learned life lessons and created high profiles after these interactions. He also conducts teacher training sessions as he believes that teachers are the ones who make tomorrow's citizens. He teaches them what is effective and effective teaching, educational techniques, and etc. Under the Kerala government's Higher Education Council, with Walk with a Scholar, he initiated Mentors Navigation Workshop for college teachers and reached out to colleges in whole of Kerala. All the Gulf CBSE school principals heard him, and as a continuation, he trained almost all teachers from most of the prestigious Indian schools in Gulf. He had a 2-year tenure as management professor in engineering college under Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University at Hyderabad. He headed an engineering college in Kerala as executive director for a year. He also worked as a consultant for an international school in North Kerala. He is an advisory board in many of the trusts and contribute a great amount in many projects that help students. He initiated Destination IAS and Mission CSET for civil service aspirants and is an active in motivation and creating basic knowledge for civil service preparation among school and college students. JNAANAM at his native is a hermitage to accommodate around 50 students to run short-term holiday residential camps and attracted youth from over 20 countries and run 30 camps from 2014 to 2018, participated by over 500. His passion for life and learning is an investment for future earning or life or learn in full enjoyment has made him to author books like Life Made Simple, Life of Love, Rhythm of Life, Life is to Live, and Life Reflection. So let us give him a virtual round of applause and a warm welcome, Dr. T.P. Sasi Kumar.
Namaskaram and thank you. Nice to see my brother Professor Mario back after a few days of gap. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Your technical university running the international diploma leadership program, the educational leadership and development, right?
Yes, Prof.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Aurelio Vanessa, that's how I pronounce?
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Thanks a lot for the nice introduction and invitation. We have 1 hour to go. I know this topic of ITC, Information Technology Communication. This is a common topic in all the educational programs. I am from India. I must have spoke to more than 1 million teachers. All the training centers in India where educators are educated, we have a common program which is the information technology including communication. Communication is a bigger perspective, not necessarily in the technological scenario. Without technology also people can communicate. The normal classrooms which we had with board and chalk the teachers communicate. But today, people talk about 21st century. But I love to speak of third decade of 21st century. That's because a few years back, almost 15 years back, I authored a book on multimedia communication, where the teaching classrooms can be with pictures, audio, video, and how that can be implemented in classrooms. Pedagogies and practices for e-web net learning. You can just send me a WhatsApp. I can send you the book, the soft copy of the book. It's available on my website. Look at the books. It's a adaptive learning textbook which I authored nearly 18 years back. But I couldn't influence large number of teachers, though I was running around meeting teachers, talking to them, taking classes for last 20-25 years. But so easily, soon after the COVID came, people came on to webinars. Classrooms have been shifted into, like this classroom today, we have 469 people joined. And you are in Philippines and I am in India. You can see how beautifully the technology evolved. But it did not happen in a century. Century is a large time. Though I keep saying the third decade of 21st century. So I keep talking about the information technology development as 3-2-1 technology. Third century, third decade of 21st century. So now we are talking in terms of third decade of 21st century. So I call this information technology and communication programs which we are running is a 3-2-1 program. So I am talking about how much things have been changed in the 3-2-1 scenario. So it's not the philosophical communication. It is the information communication technology which made all of us to communicate using technological tools and resources used, the information used by me to transmit, and I can also store it. Traditionally it was not possible. Now I am storing it. I am storing it in multiple devices. I am storing it in an audio, I am storing it in a video there, I am storing and grabbing the screen here. So multiple storing and creating it, editing it, sharing it across. I am going to post this on YouTube. So exchange of information happens so tremendously, which changed the education system. Therefore, very aptly Professor Mario, my brother, chosen this diploma program with a high potential leadership program which could influence the next generation, and in the way in which it has to be looked at, it has to be very clearly understood. So probably what we will do is to, in the 1 hour time what we have, we will see how the information and communication flow process happens, because the term is communication, information, and the system in which it runs. System is not the computer alone. It is not the transfer devices which is used. It starts from the sender who is, now I am speaking. From here it goes to my computer, and there is a formatting happening there, a formulation happening there, a frequency change happening there, the video and the audio, the signal processing happens there, image processing happens there. In space department my job was image processing. So how the image is processed before transmitting, what happens there, and what channel is used, what bandwidth is used, and how delivery happens at your end. So that's the technology part. And the response, the human part is how much response you are giving. How much is your facial expression which talks about how genuine you are? How much you understood the topic? How are you able to paraphrase it? How are you able to brief it? How are you able to create it concretized so that it runs not from my brain, not from my buddhi, not from my brain, but it comes from my heart. It comes with a feeling of enthusiasm. I was so happy when Aurelio asked to know how many of you are excited. Show me the mood in which you are there. The mood is not the brain activity. It is the heart. It is the feeling. So unless the feeling is there and you are not happy to receive what I am saying, though the transmission happens, the receive does not happen. And whatever I speak, you start processing internally to convert that into your understanding, and therefore it becomes your knowledge. So there is a perception, and that's a human part of it. The first part is the technology part. The second part is the human part of it. How much perception you have, how much you understood, how well you received it. And as a receiver, the technological receiver, the computer receives. Your ear, your brain, your heart, your knowledge, which used for pre-processing it and post-processing it, understanding the content, and then that becomes the real communication. So communication process and the system is not just a technology, because it's a human and technology interaction, intervention. Medium is the language in which I am speaking, and when it comes to computer, it is the computer encoding, decoding and receiver. When it is the human, it is the decoding which happens in the terms of language from my thought process, from my heart and the feeling, and the encoding which happens inside you, in which you understand and you realize the terminology and the content in which I am talking to you. So there is a technological advantage. It may help people, but if the human advantage is not used, if you don't understand, if you don't realize it and you don't process it, you don't understand the objective and scope, and you just do it for getting a certificate. One of the biggest problem in the technological, social media, Facebook, WhatsApp, all these have become so worst, where education is being sold or education is being given free. Certificates are no value today, because people just give doctorates, people just give diplomas, people just give masters, even without testing any qualification which they have, how much they understood, how much they got. So it's a big communication, it's a big technology which could have used for a good purpose, have been put into the bad soil. And what grooms out is the next generation with no quality, no value for the true knowledge and education. So there is a good part of it and there is a bad part of it. As educators, as serious people, now there are 465 people from Philippines, except probably one or two from different part of the other country. I am sure those people who are listening to me are serious people. Otherwise, at 1 p.m. you will not sit in front of and then listen to somebody who is talking to you from India. And there is a reasonable good concern in all of you, which I am not seeing any part of the world. You are all great. You have given value for education, value for knowledge. So the application areas in which we have to speak now, in terms of technology development, which needs to be used for communication in the most proper way. It can be telephone, it can be mobile, it can be the traditional, we had a telegram, radio, computers. The applications can be the civilian applications, military applications, broadcasting, mass media, journalism. My department called the space department, which is satellite space communication. and signal processing. I told you the digital signal processing, image processing, all these have to be understood. And those channels which are used for communicating, which are generally called the technology system, and it has its limitations, but I'm sure days to come all those limitations will go. We have connection problem. When we talk to somebody in the remote village, we'll say their connection is not there. When the weather is not good, the connection goes. Therefore the communication system collapses. When I was traveling last week in the Nepal, there is a lot of problem in the communication sometime. I went up to the top hill Everest in the base camp. You cannot communicate to anybody in the world unless you have got a very specific communication system. So those barriers are only temporary. I'm sure tomorrow 4G, 5G is going to come, industrial revolution is going to change the bandwidth so much. Anything can be put. And what is the disadvantage of that? Everybody can put informations, and lot of information overloading happens. The digital communication is so vast. You know, the YouTube, the number of videos, the length in which the videos are being recorded and then posted. For last 1200 days I am posting every day, average 2 hours. So you can imagine, in the whole world, millions and trillions of people continuously putting it. Entertainment, education, fun, business, technology, all these informations when you put, I don't think one life is not good enough, because as every day it keeps on exponentially growing the volume in which data are dumped into the YouTube and so many such social media platforms. So the digital communication has a great advantage of putting it across to the other part of the world, but you can see it's overloaded. And therefore, for you to filter it, distill it, select what is exactly required for you. You require to know the tag terms, the tag words which you have to use for searching. I'm sure when you start searching information technology system, DrTPS, you will get into this lecture. But that DrTPS is not there, only that word. I'm sure you will get millions of discussions. And whom do you look at it? Where do you go and search? And that needs a extra search engine, not in the system. In the system it is there, but in your brain. So unless you are more and more knowledgeable, unless you are more and more tricky, unless you are smart enough, the smart systems can cheat you. So as the system improves its smartness, if you want to edit, you look at the information what you really want, filter it, pinpoint it, focus, concentrate, densify. You need to have that smartness. So it is not the delivering of bad news on the email, on the Facebook, on the Twitter, on the social media platforms, which needs to be stopped, because nobody can control this. Not even the people who are owning it, hosting it, and then putting it forward. But exactly what is required is, we as human, as educated people, need to be so brilliant that I know what I want. I can look at what is bad news, what is good news, and what is worth looking at it, and avoid the difficult, bad, worse conversations which happens across in the whole digital platform. No mistakes, being very assertive, being very specific. If it is not there, I am sure in this digital scenario we lose and we waste a lot of time. So it is most essential to respond and react to the best quality products. I post a lot of YouTubes, and rarely we see people, when I say, oh, I have seen it, but did you react to that? Did you respond to that? Did you put a comment there? See, when you respond to that, that comment shows that yes, this is some quality product which somebody has seen. and therefore it becomes a verified product which can be observed by, listened by, understood by, reacted by somebody else tomorrow. If you don't respond, what happens is it becomes a normal routine dumped data on the platform. So it's the responsibility of the good learner to give path to the people for the success and the failure, depending on how are you going to react to the situations. So a comment on the YouTube when you love it, a reaction to the class when you love it, because it's not, I am not seeing everyone in front of me. In the digital scenario, when there are 473 people today on the screen, I am able to see only very few on my screen, and I am not able to see your reactions and mood. Therefore, what happens? Unless you respond to this, unless you ask questions, unless you communicate to each other, communication is not one way. Information is not passing my informations to you. Each of you who are sitting in front of me are in a different knowledge, different mood, different thought process, and different physical situations, emotional feelings, different intellectual level, different social and cultural structure. Philippines is not in the same culture as DrTPS is living in India. India itself, when I travel from north to south to east to west, I see broad differences. So what happens? I will not be able to understand the culture. So I speak something from the perceive of what I think Philippines educational leaders require. Yeah, maybe my brother Professor Mar gave a small note saying that these are the topics which you have to cover. But not good enough. Unless each of you communicate, it is only to introduce DrTPS to the number of people over here. And you have my number. I have written my number there. So that immediately after this session or any point of time, you feel that, oh, this man is worth, let me talk to him. You can always WhatsApp. So use the advantage of reaching out to people all across the globe. And that's how I am connected to Professor Mar today. I have not been to Philippines. Professor Mar Rio has never been into India. But it's only the digital connections. And that digital connection made me to use professor for taking a class in my native place. I connected him to my professor or my colleague, my junior who is running a college. So Professor Mario uses me quite often for talking to many people. The purpose is for each one of you to communicate to me, clarify, ask questions, and then choose who is this fellow who want to be with me, or who can be with me so that I can communicate to him. So you have the great opportunity to approach anybody in the world, and that is the beginning of the communication. Otherwise, there can be a mind and there can be a heart which will say, I want, and but you don't react. Therefore, communication doesn't happen. In this whole world, the best opportunity which all of us have to use is communicating to each other. Because only human being, only social being can use this facility, and then we are the greatest spiritual being in this world. Understand this ability. Assume that somebody is good. Maybe you have to interact with him for some time to realize that he is good or bad. Physical interaction, yes, there can be flops. But I am sure in the digital scenario, you can always interact with anybody, you can cut him off. Because blocking is possible. Physical scenario, you will not be able to block. So take a chance, communicate to anybody. And if somebody is violating your privacy, take care of. Very, very cautious about not going beyond the professional, beyond the social, and getting into the personal matters. Take care. Yes, it's not my cup of tea. And you have to monitor. Lot of junk information comes. Junk profile comes. The people don't speak like this with the picture in front of you. You don't know whether this man has got a gray hair or a black hair. Right? I can make a profile which is totally false. Unless you check the credibility, don't react to anybody. Don't talk to anybody. Because the world of communication, in the technology, fooling is more. Approximately 40% of profiles which are on the social media are fake. There is a lot of research happening in the journalism in the terms of fake news distillation process, because fake news is 40%. Therefore, we have got a lot of technology enablers who are also the fact check being done all across the globe. Why is it required? Because a lot of false news are coming. News circulation process traditionally was physical, therefore there are a lot of checks. But with all these digital scenario which we have, which can cross check, when I create my profile, immediately verification done. Twitter will say your account is verified. With all these verification, I am saying 40% fake. So you can imagine, technology is not good enough, because as the technology progresses, to check the policing is more, I am sure the thief will identify new technologies to overpower the police. So it's very, very essential to be very careful on the fake news, fake informations, fake people. The news process, which traditionally goes for a creation, editing, publishing, and amplify and put it into the frame in the printed news as you are seeing, or maybe a television program which you are seeing, or a radio program which you are seeing. What is false in the internet and the web and the technological scenario, which we call it as information communication overflowing platforms? www, world web net, where, when, why, how, for what will not be understood perfectly. Anybody can enter into the internet, anybody can publish, anybody can amplify, anybody can edit, anybody can thrash. So the internet age news process, the communication process, the information process is very dangerous, very advantageous. Unless you are, again in the earlier case I was telling, unless you are smart enough, if you are not digitally smart, the social media can be a main driver for fake news. And top news, the fake news and the top news which comes, the breaking news which it comes, nearly 10% of the people in this world gets every moment, the 10% of the real news is being suspected as fake news also. So what happens when fake news is there? You don't know which is right, which is wrong. So the confusion is much more. So unless you are smart, you will have a lot of problems. It's almost 1:1. The source of these troubles, though people wanted to know what is right and what is wrong, in educated or uneducated, you can see the Facebook or the WhatsApp which we have on the normal personal chats. There are also a lot of fake news comes, forwarded messages comes, and I'm sure the service provider has got some filtering process. They take care of the author, publisher, platform, and the reader profile in which they are reading, who are all the people who likes it, take their account verified. But when it comes to a normal one-to-one communication, you can see a lot of fakes. The other day, I was in a great heritage place in India, which has got the Buddhist statues. The Buddha was there near a tree where he was living. Saranathi, the place where we have great kingdoms and the stories. As a normal tourist traveler, I went there in Saranath. Some professional guide who is part of a trust under the Buddhist community comes and then says that I am a free guide because I am being paid by the community. He takes us around and shows the places around. Huge statue of Buddha is there. Explains this is where what happened, when it happened, all the history is being explained. So well informed, Yeah, great. I felt really happy. And he is doing it as free service. And later, what happens? He takes us to a shop where he gets the commission for taking the tourist person for the purchase, where the fake starts. And later we understand when we go to the Government of India's archaeological place, all this setup of tourist guide, the garden, the big statue, all that is a fake one. It is not the place where Buddha's tree was there. It is not the place where enlightenment happened. This is not the place what has happened. Nothing has happened. These are all fake created for making a great marketing for the products being sold. Got it? So what happens? A tourist guide who gives you a lot of information and guide you through in the physical world also have got this fake. So you can imagine if that can happen on the physical world like this, how much can happen, how much fake news can happen in the private chat, emails, WhatsApp, Facebook, Snapchat, Signal, Telegram, Viber, what media we have. All of them have got millions of such activities happening around this world. So it's not human, it's not mission, it's a combination of human and mission together, which needs to be in vigilant mode. And human mission interaction. Using only missions, yes, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, lot of technological developments that can do a lot of things. In a human, yes, my recheck with from the fake travel guide to the Government of India's travel guide, I got a check. Right. So human fact check is with your movement, your travel, your experience, but the human mission interaction, the teamwork of this, the people who put the fake news to the people who accept that and then look at it, both are smart. So there is a great social structure which needs to be understood for creating the content, reacting to the facts, and the style in which people look at it, the propagation in which it happens, the people who are reacting to that, the source from which the authentication came, recheck with these experts. So there is nothing wrong. Assume that something happens immediately, you can check with somebody who knows how to do a fact check. The fact check is essential. FACT, fact check is essential. If you don't do the fact check and then start propagating it, read it carefully, every day so many junk forwarded messages come. It just to delete, that's it. Unless you speak yourself, don't forward somebody's. Unless you realize and understand, put a one line comment there saying that this is the objective and scope of this lecture. This is the content which I got it. Add value to that. So I'm sure when you do value addition to somebody's information, your communication becomes more stronger. That's what academicians are supposed to do. Otherwise, academics have no meaning. I'm sure data is available, information is available, but what is essential is what you perceived from that information is what is to be transferred. As academicians, the perceiver perceives the way the perceiver want to perceive and not the way the speaker want the perceiver to perceive. Your perception is entirely different. So when you add your perception, add your views, the content becomes more stronger. So value addition is what makes the world more purer and purer. And look at how many people added value to my YouTube content. Whether somebody has put a comment there, whether this lecture become only a data junk or is it became quite useful. How do I know? Only when you react to this, ask question, I answer to that. A interaction, communication is not one way. Communication is what I am speaking, you receive it, you reflect on that. So most important is reflecting on somebody's talk. Otherwise, I can be a fake fellow. I can copy some data from somewhere, make a text here and then start talking. I am sitting in front of you with a white sheet where which I have written the details when you are speaking. I wrote the name of Aurelio and Mario and then what diploma is being given. This is what my point in front of me today. So, are you that person who can influence people from the knowledge which you gained, or are you reading somebody's knowledge, somebody's data? Information has to be processed inside each one of us to create as my knowledge. So I will not become a gatekeeper. I will become a guerrilla person. I will become a creative person. I get into the content, search what I want, get what I want, and paraphrase it, make a brief content out of it. So this is what the real information technology can offer to you, and I believe that this is what all of us are supposed to do. I spoke almost, including the introduction, I think I spoke almost 40 minutes now. Good enough. I think if I have got some another 20 minutes to answer to you, or maybe whatever time permits, and if there are good questions, as usual, Professor Mario knows that without interaction I will not go, because that's the beauty of the whole classroom. So I'm so glad that you have 480 people. But how many people attended my session really responding to that and asking questions and reflecting counts the number. If 10% itself is a great number, that means 40 people reacting to this session and then communicating to me. You have a limit of 10 minutes or 15 minutes, but I'm sure as long as you live, as long as I am living, you can communicate to me.
Dr. TPS, that we have learned a lot from the sharing. You have a nice presentation, and that our students will be able to take home something from you, a percentage of the sharing that you get. And I was telling them that you are not a traditional speaker. You speak from your heart. Okay, you speak from your experience, and I know you have not failed our participants. So,
Right. So yeah, I'm sure that the students learned a lot from Mr. or Dr. DPS today. Yes, I can see that he speaks directly from his heart, the way he communicated to the students. So I think if you have questions, I think his number is flashed on his name. So I think he mentioned earlier that you can contact him directly if you have further questions. So again, a virtual round of applause to Dr. TPS. Thank you, Dr. TPS.